Hello, the topic today is 5G. What is it and is it safe? Hello, my name is Pam Bartha and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I'm very excited to spend this time with you today talking about 5G. Many of you may not know what 5G is, but it's something that's coming and you really need to know a few things about it. And if we haven't met yet, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 28 years ago, and I've been able to keep it 29 years actually now. We're into 29 years. So I've been able to keep it in remission for the past 29 years because I became the director of my health, because I learned about all these things. And so what I've done over the past, I would say 14 years at least by now, is really focused on helping people to understand how to be the director of their health, to become basically in charge and to play an active role, to work together with their healthcare providers. And so we are living in a time when we have so many different things in our environment that are affecting our health. And some of these hero doctors have said to me that it's so much harder to help people recover today than it was even 10 years ago. And today's topic is going to help you to understand why. And so if we don't address this in our life, it makes it super hard for us to recover from chronic disease. And it makes us so much more susceptible to becoming sick, as you will see with all this information. So what is 5G? And before I start, I just want to say hello to a few people. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. And please make sure that if you know people around you that are really interested in finding ways to improve their quality of life and their health, and they need to know about this. And that's the thing, is a lot of you are wellness champions, and some of you have just found me for the first time. But anyone that I meet is usually the type of person that... Awesome, you guys can hear me. I just want to make sure you could hear me. So you are the wellness champions. You are helping us to get this information out. And this is really, really huge. All right. So please interact with me during this presentation that I'm going to share. Put your questions in the comment box. Please share this with other people because this is a very important topic. It's a huge topic. And so I'm just going to share a little bit today just to kind of get your, just to whet your appetite and help you to give you some resources so that you can follow the resources and do your own due diligence on this topic. So what is 5G? 5G is the next generation of wireless networks that we're going to have available for us. And what this means to us is that it's really going to increase the speed of how we work online. For example, up to 200 times faster. And it can also, like they're talking about in the future that maybe robots, we could be using robots and we can having cars that will drive without drivers. And, you know, basically the sky is the limit. But is it safe? And that's the thing that we have to ask. So there has been a lot of, I would say, concern by people, doctors, and also people that are becoming electrosensitive with all of this wireless radiation around us. And this is even with the 3 and the 4G. The 4G is basically the most common generation of wireless network that many of the countries are using right now, and that's the fastest. But they're putting together this 5G, they're implementing, putting it in place, and they're going to start it within the next year or two. There are some cities, I'll be mentioning which cities in the United States, that will be having this 5G set up by the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. That's what it's scheduled for. But our 4G, the fourth generation of wireless networks, it is running at a frequency of about, it's below 6 gigahertz, all right? So I know that's sort of scientific, but this 5G generation has the potential to be, it's going to run anywhere from 24 to 100 to 300 or more gigahertz. Huge difference. And that's why it's so much faster. And that sounds so great, right? We all want to have great conveniences where we want to download something and it's just there immediately. And when we send something, there's no lag time. But the problem is that there have not been adequate safety studies. It's really, really significant. So if we just look at the wireless technology, that we started with 2G, and then we went to 3G, and then we went to 4G, and now we're going to be introducing 5G. So with the research that's been looking at the safety of wireless technologies, when they look at all the studies that were done by the industry, okay, so the industry invested money into studies to see if their technology is safe, this wireless technology is safe. And about 68% of the studies showed that it's safe, and about 32% of the studies showed that it is not safe. So even at that, you would think that the government would think, okay, well, if 32% showed that it was not safe, that it does have an effect on our health, that we should maybe study it a little bit before we introduce it. And then if you look at the studies that were conducted by non-industry, so not by the telecommunication industry, these are independent, so they have no financial gain. They found that 70% of the studies that were done showed that it was detrimental to our health, all right? And we're seeing things like infertility or decreased fertility and affecting our nervous system and our immune system and many different parts of our body, including increased risk of cancer. So there's this huge body of research, 70% of it, that has nothing to do with the industry, that's saying that it's harmful to our health. And only 30% of those studies showed that it did not impact our health. And so we can never go by one study. We have to look at numerous studies to really determine whether something is harmful to us or not. So that's one thing. So this was before the 5G. So just looking back at all the non-influenced industry studies, 70% said that it had definite impacts on our health. And for any of you that are science geeks, or you just want to make sure to validate what I'm saying, we're going to be sharing a lot of really great resources below the video here. So that is one thing to consider. Then in 2016, it was a $25 million study conducted by the government, and it's by the National Toxicology Program. And what they found, and this is really big, so we're not even talking about 5G yet, we're just talking about the existing technology. They found that the scientists found an increase in heart, brain, and many other types of tumors in lab animals exposed to radiation emitted by 2G and 3G, which is less, it's not as strong as 4G. So 4G is what most of us are operating on now with our wireless networks. And so just even with the 2G and the 3G, they're finding that in the lab animals, there was an increase in different types of tumors, heart, brain, and many other types of tumors. So this really sends out a big red flag because 5G is so much stronger, right? We're talking about anywhere between 24 to 300 or more gigahertz versus, I can't remember what the 2 and 3G, but the 4G was only less than 6. So very, very big. So even though we have all of these studies showing that wireless technology is detrimental to our health, it just keeps getting pushed into place. And it's really awful what's going on. And that's why we need to be aware of it. And I'm all for technology, and I'm all for convenience. Right now I'm talking to you. That's how we can be communicating with each other. Absolutely. But there are also safer technologies that we can use, like fiber optics, right? That does not emit a lot of radiation. And yes, it's not going to be a wireless, right, signal that goes around, but we can't just introduce something if it's not safe. We have to put measures in place to protect people, especially our children, for sure, and the chronically sick. So it's the elderly, the children, and the chronically sick that truly feel this sooner than other people. And yes, if somebody holds a cell phone to their head for 10 years or so, very often they're showing up with tumors, but I'm talking about people that become electrosensitive earlier on. So just this year in March 2018, there's a really good article, and the Environmental Working Group is a wonderful group that is a watchdog and really brings all this information to light. So there's an article that we will post also for you. But basically in March this year, what they shared on that article is that the FCC voted to exclude installations of these 5G equipment from the National Environmental Protection Act and the National Historic Prevention Act. Basically, these laws are in place to make sure that the government regulates the safety so that, you know, whenever we're introducing something, it does not impact the environment and also our historical properties. What about our health? That's even more important. But the problem is that even though, like, so it was pushed through, and they do not have to be investigated or regulated through that. So what's happening is 5G is being pushed out, it's being rolled out. Most people don't know about it. We're not hearing about it on the news. We're not hearing about, you have to do your own due diligence, do your own digging. And they're only talking about the positives, and there have been no real safety studies. There have been none on 5G for sure. So they are also 24, I just wanted to share, 24 states have passed laws pushed by the wireless lobby groups to override local rulings that would regulate the sightings of these base stations. And so they are popping up all over the place. So the deployment of these little, they're not that big. The one close in our area in British Columbia, I'm starting to see them. And how you'll notice that if it's the 5G network is they're putting them up every block and a half. Because 5G, it is a higher frequency, so there's more wavelengths, but they're shorter. They have to put these cell towers, these little mini cell towers, every block to a block and a half. And so they will literally be just putting it right in front of somebody's home. And I've been to a neighborhood in our area where they're only about maybe a foot by a foot. That's how big they are. They look like a box. They're on a telephone pole. You guys need to look. And if you see them every block to block and a half, we just noticed it walking around, that is 5G, because normally they do not have these cell towers every block to a block and a half. They have to put that in place for 5G. So in Canada, the major providers are not telling us when they're going to have it in place, but some of the deployment in the United States, so Verizon said that Sacramento, Los Angeles, Houston, Texas will all be scheduled to receive 5G technology by the end of this year. So they're putting it all in place. And then AT&T aims to have service begin by the end of 2018 in Charlotte and Raleigh and Oklahoma City. Sprint is aiming to begin service in the first half of 2019 in Atlanta, Chicago, LA, Houston, Dallas, and Washington. So I honestly thought that it was coming out in the early 2020s, right? I did not think that it was being put in place right now. I thought we had a couple of years. So the big concern with people that are listening to this video is that if you have chronic disease, all right, and you have to understand that there are lots of studies that show that when we have infections in the body, that the radiation causes these infections to grow a lot faster. Dr. Klinghardt has measured this in his lab, and they grow up to 600 times faster. And that is just with the technology that's available right now, with the 4G, and not with the 5G. So that's why a lot of us are electrosensitive. I believe that's one of the big reasons why a lot of us are electrosensitive, is that when we're out of balance with our microbes in our body, they sense this radiation and it makes them agitated, and they grow faster, and they produce more poisons, and they become more virulent. That is one big explanation for sure. And if you've hung out with me, if you've taken my course, you know that there's a ton of evidence that shows that cancer is an infectious disease. And so it makes sense that it would promote cancer and tumors also. And so this is a really big factor, is when you want to recover from chronic disease, you have to understand the impact of this wireless radiation. It's invisible. You can't see it. And so what you need to do is you need to share this with your friends and your family, because when I walked around the neighborhood, there was this little mini cell tower pointed directly, like maybe it was like a house or two, like it's on the other side of the street, but a house or two away from another house, pointing directly. And when I measured it with my meter, it was measuring anywhere between 1,600 to 8,000 microwatts per meter squared. And I don't know if the 5G is turned on or not, but it's a very strong little cell tower, and it's very small. If you have that blasting into your bedroom while you're sleeping, you're going to start feeling it for sure. What is so incredibly interesting is the wireless communication companies, they're saying, no, 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 there's no, it's not going to be harmful at all. It's totally safe. If that's the case, then why are they telling their shareholders that they may end up with some lawsuits, they may end up with having to pay out for alleged health, damage to health or true health claims, or we may find in the future that it's harmful to the health? Why are they putting that out? Another thing is, why are the insurance companies, if you have life insurance company, you really need to read your policy, because there's a whole bunch of life insurance companies that are saying that we will not cover any damage or disability caused by wireless radiation. So the insurance companies are not going to cover it. They don't want to, because they can see a huge liability problem in the future. And the wireless network companies are basically telling the shareholders that, we could have this in the future. We're going gangbusters forward, but this could happen in the future. The governments are not paying attention, and there are some very strong lobby groups. This is a really big concern, a really, really big concern. We've introduced tobacco right into society, and then oops, a few years later, we're like, oh my gosh, it's causing cancer and making everybody sick. And so this has happened several times in history. And I really believe that if we become aware, and yes, we want technology, but not at the cost of our health. So we have to make sure it's safe. We just need to put a pause on it. We need to just check to make sure that it's safe, or introduce this technology in a way that is safe, for sure. So wanted to share that with you, because this is one of the reasons that, let's say if you're living close to a cell tower right now, and you have multiple sclerosis or some other chronic disease, and you're not getting better, that could be one of the factors that's really holding you back. It's super, super significant. And there are lots of websites that have hundreds, if not thousands, of studies where they've been studying this for many years. All right, anything else I wanted to add? Solutions, we'll be talking about solutions. It's a really good documentary that was just released, and it's called Generation Zapped. Generation Zapped. You can watch it online, you can stream it, you can purchase the DVD, and then you'll get some extra interviews that they couldn't fit on the film. But it looks like it's very well done, and Dr. Magda Havas is on it, and she's one of my favorite hero doctors that talks about, and she's an expert in wireless technology and the health implications for it. Just to give you an idea of how significant this is, on one of her videos, she shared two people that have multiple sclerosis. And one of them had terrible tremors. Her arms were like this, right? And they reduced the EMF, the RF radiation, the dirty electricity in the home where this woman lived that had multiple sclerosis. And after they did that, her tremors were, I would say, at least 2/3, if not more reduced. And that's all she did. Really huge. Another gentleman, when he would walk down the hall, he would stagger like he was drunk, had multiple sclerosis, right? Because we have balance issues. And by cleaning up all the radiation in his home, he was able to walk a straight line. I have this all the time with my students. They notice that when they unplug their router at night, or when they start to make sure their phone is not by their bed, the cordless phone, their cell phone, they turn it on airplane mode, they find that they sleep better and they recover a lot faster. All right, so this is something that maybe at work you have a lot of radiation, maybe at school, and it's brutal what's going on in the schools, because our children's brains are different than ours. We have these commercial routers in the classrooms. We have these different computers, laptops that are wireless. We have iPads that are wireless. And so our children are exposed to so much radiation, and they are feeling it. It's making them sick. And one of the scientists on the Generation Zapped, he shared, and I want you guys to guess, like, how much of an increase in wireless radiation do you think we've experienced in the past? It would be like 10 years, just in the last 10 years, double, triple, take a guess. What do you think the increase in wireless radiation in our environment, how much has it gone up? I'm gonna see if anybody guesses. Because you'll never guess. It's like insane unless you've seen this documentary. I've never heard of this before, but it's 1 quintillion, and that is 1 with 18 zeros behind it. That's how many times higher the radiation is now than it was 10 years ago. So that's a 1 with 18 zeros behind it. 1 quintillion. I've never heard that before. So we have 1 quintillion times more radiation, invisible radiation around us than we did 10 years ago. That is really, really significant. So I'm just going to go to see if you guys see your comments. Hopefully I can pull them up here. 2,000%. Pretty close, Catherine, but not even close at all. Hello, Patricia, and hello, Deborah. So if you guys have any questions, I will talk a little bit more about solutions for sure, right? Because I don't want to scare you guys and make you guys not sleep tonight. You need to know about solutions. So Sheila, thank you so much for this information. I had no idea. It's really significant, right? It's super, super significant, and you have to protect yourself and your family from this. And you, like right now, I'm working behind technology. You can do it safely so that it's not going to make you sick. Basically, no matter what you eat, all organic, nothing I do can help me. I keep all animals. I have electronics items. You've had MS for 16 years. So I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Series, I think. There is a better way. Yes, if you do certain things, you can beat the multiple sclerosis. My students are doing that. There's many people that have recovered from MS. Not just my students, but other people around the world are doing this. Multiple sclerosis and chronic disease is caused by infections. If you haven't met me before, make sure to go back to some of my videos. I have a 6-part series on infections and multiple sclerosis. And if you treat those infections well, then the disease stops and you're going to have a ton of recovery. And it's really important to work with somebody who understands how to treat those infections, because it's challenging and you have to use strategy. But we also have to support our body in treating those infections. So we have to clean up our environment. And one of the big invisible things in our environment is this wireless radiation. And it breaks my heart that, you know, these lobbyists, they're like, you know, the industries, we can make billions of dollars. Yes, that's all good to make money, but we have to make sure that we don't make our whole country sick and all our countries sick. So if you are somebody who is, you've been collecting information for a long time, and this is going to be another tool in your toolkit, right? Things to do. But you're at the place where you're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick. I am tired of researching. I want a plan. I want a step-by-step plan to recover. I want to recover in months, not years. Then make sure to watch my masterclass training. It will be posted in this video. And in that video, I tell you the steps you need to take, and I tell you how, if you're ready, that you can join an amazing group of wellness champions from all over the world that are taking their health and their life back right now. All right, and so make sure to watch the masterclass training. There is hope for you, but you have to take a different path. You cannot keep doing what you're doing, because you will continue to become more and more disabled. Hello, Pamela. Hello, Kathleen. Hello, Victor and Deb. I think you guys don't have a lot of questions because this is so new, right? Good evening, Ronnie and Rob and Dawn, Veronica, Zuditu, and Vicky. Thank you so much, Maureen. And hello, Nancy and Danielle. Let's see if there's any last questions. There are more questions, but I'm not seeing them, I don't think. Okay, so Tricia is saying, wow, infections. And then they're pumping us with meds that don't help. And that is the sad reality, right? When we have chronic disease, we have all these infections in our body. There's tons and tons and tons of peer-reviewed scientific articles. This is the most heavily researched field in the world today, is understanding how the microbes in our body affect us in health and sickness. And I did share a couple of weeks ago about brand new research from Spain, Madrid, talking about finding fungal infections inside the brains of people with multiple sclerosis and inside the neurons. And we know, the wellness champions know, that that's not the only problem. That fungus is definitely one of the big players, but there are others involved. Parasites for sure, and very often the Lyme type infections. And the problem with EMS medications is that they're not treating the infections. They are suppressing our immune system's response to the infections. That's why we continue to progress with the disease. That's why we become disabled in time. That's why they have to keep shifting and shifting and shifting the meds, because our immune system, like when you're suppressing it, it becomes dangerously low, then they've got to shift it to something else. Oh, your lymphocytes are too low. Okay, we'll put you on this. Oh, your white blood cells are too low. We'll move you on this. And that is not the answer. The answer is to treat the cause. And we do know what the cause is. There are too many people that have recovered. So if they can do it, you can do it too. So make sure to watch my master class training. All right, I'm just looking to see if there are any last questions. So what is the documentary, Dana is asking? The documentary is called Generation Zapped, and I believe it just came out last week, Generation Zapped. There's another really good resource. It's called Take Back Your Power. Take Back Your Power. It's a website, and he has been putting out information for years and years. And as I mentioned, we're going to do a professional and a full blog report on this topic, where we will have a lot of links for specific sites where you can go and you can see the research yourself. And there are hundreds of different scientists from all over the world that are really worried about this. And not just the 5G, but even just the 4G, and how this is impacting our health, the children's health, our environment. And so we have to catch up to the research. We have to catch up. We have to become aware. And it's really unfortunate, but this is not covered on mainstream media. And we're not surprised. So yes, Rowan, it's not 4,000. It's the increase, if some of you have missed it, the increase in radiation, the ambient wireless radiation in our environment over the past 10 years is as a quintillion, which is a 1 with 18 zeros behind it. So of course that has to impact our health, right? Okay, so I think that's all the questions. I want to just quickly go into some solutions, because that is what we want, right? So what do I do? So years ago, because I'm a coach and because I'm helping people recover, I did, myself and another physiotherapist, we split the instruments and we bought them and to use them, because I wanted to see, right? I want to see with my eyes, like how this radiation works. So working behind my laptop, for example, it would be 200 microwatts per meter squared. That's the units, that's the measurement of the radiation. And when I turned off the wireless signal, and I used an Ethernet cable to plug into my computer, my laptop, and I turned the Bluetooth off, it dropped down to below 5. And it really was a big visual for me to see that. And then when I went around and did some measuring, so for example, at my son's home, and I measured their newer router, and it was blasting off 600 microwatts per meter squared in a bedroom that's like close right against the living room and against the kitchen, and I was standing 6 feet away. All right, and where we sleep, it should be under 5 microwatts per meter squared. So these routers are powerful. Unplug them at night, and sometimes you can actually set them to be off so that your home is not being blasted all night. I went to a friend's home and his bedroom was against his office. So he had 2 cordless phones in his room. The radiation close to him from the office and from his cordless phones was basically like having your microwave blasting on high, so over 1,000 microwatts per meter squared where he was laying. And he is a physiotherapist who had an accident, and so he was really embarrassed. He's like, I can't believe this, that I've been exposed to this and just resting in my bed and I'm being nuked basically by such a high level of radiation, because his office was right next to his bedroom where he had his big computer, he had cordless phones, he had his printer, which is wireless, right? And he had iPad there. So we had multiple devices. And with this 5G, you have to understand, their goal is that all our appliances will be smart. They'll be all talking to each other. The other concern is basically our privacy, right? Is that when you're bringing in such a higher technology that can handle so much more data and collect data and organize data, so our privacy, there is a really big risk of, our personal information and security for ourselves. So that's another really big thing. really, really huge part. And you've probably been seeing that in the news recently. So for turning, number one, in your bedroom, make sure that if you have your cordless phones beside your bed, don't do that anymore. Keep your cordless phones away from you, as far away as possible. And you have to understand that where the cordless phones sit in, basically the home base, that's what's emitting throughout your whole house. So for me, I don't have a cordless phone in my house anymore. I have a corded phone. I have seen university professors that understand all this radiation. I've talked to them, and they don't even have cordless phones in their home. They have corded phones because they say, we know that the radiation is bad, we just don't know how bad it is. So they've gone to corded phones. You don't have to be that drastic, but what you should do is make sure where you're sleeping, it has to be a sanctuary. So you want to get rid of all the cordless phones in your bedroom. Make sure that if you have your cell phone, I personally put it on airplane mode, and I still have it quite a few feet away from my bed. But if you need to use it for an alarm clock, just make sure that you put it in airplane mode. That shuts down the wireless signal. Many of you are using iPads because they're so convenient. They give off a ton of radiation. Don't put them on your laps. It's just like when you buy a cell phone, the training manual says don't hold it against your ear because it increases your risk of cancer. So don't hold it against your ear. If you're going to talk, use the speaker phone on your cell phone. And if I'm in a really loud place, I will use earbuds. And a lot of the earbuds are not going to be a problem at all. So make sure you have the earbuds, hold the phone as far away from you as possible if you're listening to things, all right? And for men, we've seen up to a 50% decline in sperm counts in men because of the radiation, because they're holding their cell phone in their pocket. So there are certain shields that you could put on one side of your phone, and then if you put it in your pocket, it's pushing it away from your body and not against. The smart meters on your home, make sure to get it shielded. Mine is shielded, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can do. And unfortunately, it's going to be really hard to find appliances that are not smart. We tried to find, I think it was a washing machine, but I think pretty much, and TVs, they're all smart now. So we're stepping into this. And you just have to be aware of it. And if you start getting headaches and your health starts to deteriorate for no reason, then you need to go and do some hunting. Like, where is the closest cell tower? How can you find this? So just look up cell towers in your country. I know we did cell towers in Canada, and we found this map. And when you see the whole country of Canada, it looks crazy, like it's completely loaded with cell towers, and that's nothing yet. And then if you put in your address, then it'll show what's in your area. And if you notice that there are little cell towers every block and a half in your neighborhood, that means they're putting the 5G network up in your neighborhood. Because with the 4G, they do not need to put the cell towers so close together because the waves broadcast so much farther. But with 5G, it's a shorter wavelength, so they have to put more cell towers. And that means that more people are going to be exposed. So we're going to have higher exposed levels of radiation, higher frequencies, and I really know that is going to impact people's health. And then the biggest problem is people just don't know. If you have a home and there is a little mini cell tower, they're little mini ones, so it's not these big antenna ones that we've seen in the past, the 4G, but like I said, about 1 foot by 1 foot, or there could be a more narrow one, a little bit taller. But if you see them close to your home, and maybe you can even get somebody to measure it and they'll tell you how much radiation. There is also a black paint. So if, let's say, on one side of your house that the radiation is coming in, you could technically paint the walls on that side of the house and it will block it. But you'd also have to come around the corners of the wall, and you'd also have to do part of the ceiling. But there are wonderful people out there that are trained in helping you to measure your home for radiation and helping you to remediate the radiation, reducing it. But there again, when you step outside, if you've got 5G like blasting at your house, you're going to end up with a lot of radiation there. So please help us to get the word out. You guys are the champions. Please share this. It's a really big deal. We will give you lots of resources so you can check out the research yourself. and make sure to watch Generation Zap. That'll be a really good documentary. It's hot off the press. All right, I'll go do one last check for questions and then we're done. All right, thank you so much for posting. And just wanted to mention too that if you are dealing with chronic disease and you are fed up with it and you've been searching and trying so many different things and you're not getting better, it's just like not knowing about this radiation can be one of the stumbling blocks. So if you're looking for a plan where I have done 29 years now, 29 years of research to help you to take the right steps to recover so that you can treat those infections properly and have as much recovery as possible, then make sure to watch my masterclass training, and it's in the link. It's called How to Recover from Multiple Sclerosis Naturally. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to like our Facebook page. It's all Live Disease Free. So on Facebook, we are Live Disease Free. And on YouTube, we are Live Disease Free. So if you like this information and you want more in the future, make sure to subscribe to both. And so that's liking Facebook and subscribing to YouTube. So Trisha, you've got to move the router, yes, from your room. Yes, absolutely. There's even these nice little sleeves that you can put on top of your router. But just remember that if you do that, it's not going to radiate, so it'll cut off your cell Wi-Fi. But even if people are, let's say, working beside a computer and they have their router there, you can put these sleeves on it that will block the radiation from going out. Or sometimes you can do a setting. You can go onto the wireless provider setting, maybe it's whatever company you're working with. You can go into there and you can turn the Wi-Fi off. So you can change the Wi-Fi on your router. But definitely do not sit beside a router. Don't have it in your bedroom. All right, so Catherine, so does this radiation cause abnormal cell activity? I'm sure that it does. There are so many people that are sensitive that they don't have a disease label, but they're called electrosensitive or electrohypersensitive. So the thing to understand is that this radiation is not good for anyone, right? It's aging us quicker than we should, for sure. But there are some people, and I believe truly that it is the people that have a lot of heavy metals and people that have a lot of infections, they feel it the most. So when we have a lot of heavy metals, we become an antenna, right? When we have a lot of these infections, we know that, for example, parasitic worms, they can carry 200 to 300 times more heavy metals concentration in the worm than in our body. And so that, and also just we know that these infections, it bothers them, like fungus for sure. It grows a lot faster, produces a lot more poisons. But yes, it definitely does affect our cells, for sure, like even sperm and many other cells. So there are hundreds of studies you can just scan through. I personally, like if I were you and I wasn't a science buff, I would just look at the abstract or the conclusion. So if there's a title that catches your interest, then look at the little paragraph at the beginning and the little paragraph at the end, and you'll get the gist of it, and it won't be all as technology or as complicated or scientific that way. So it is really important to just see that, yes, this research is there and it's validated. So Pamela, what tool do we get to measure the wattage? So we're not measuring the wattage, we're measuring the level. So we're measuring electric fields, we're measuring magnetic fields, we're measuring the wireless radiation. So we're not measuring wattage. But I personally, if I were you, I know that on places like lessemf.com, there are little gadgets you can use, but honestly, most people don't know how to use it. They don't know how to read properly. So look for somebody in your area. Just type in the Google bar or in the search bar, just because it's going to cost you like $100 or $200 or $300 to get a really basic little unit. So ours that we got was, I think it was like $1,500 or $2,000, and that's not even a very expensive one. They could be really expensive. So if you hire an expert who does this every day and they've studied this and they know really well, then they will go through your home and they'll find all the areas that you need to correct. And they will also help you to figure out how to correct it. So you just look at in Google, just put in your city or your town, and you know, it could just be EMF testing or RF testing, radiation testing, and you'll find somebody. And then that way, at least you're going to make sure that you correct the problem truly. Otherwise, you might think you're doing the right thing and you're not helping yourself well enough. Hello, Debbie. All right. So Kathleen, if we turn off our phone at night, do we still get radiated? No. So you can either do one of two things. You can completely turn your phone off, or you can go to the settings and put it in airplane mode. So just make it green, make the little dot go green, airplane mode. Airplane mode shuts down the wireless transmission. So even when you're behind your iPad, make sure that you have it turned onto airplane mode as much as possible. Unfortunately, I don't think iPads, I thought they could, but I've talked to, in the stores at Best Buy, and they said that they cannot put an Ethernet cable into an iPad, because then you could just, like what I do with my laptop is I just put an Ethernet cable, I'm hooked up, I'm wired to the internet, but the wireless signal is turned off. So it's basically no radiation at all. It's way below 5. And remember that there are other things, but there's electric fields and magnetic fields, but the biggest concern that we're talking about today is the wireless radiation. And that would be from the 4G, but the 5G that's coming. So any room in your session, Live Disease-Free class? Yes, there is room. I have students joining every week. So I have something called continual enrollment. I can't make you wait, right? So people have joined this week and last week and the week before. So it's really just, Sheila, if you're ready. If you're ready to take back your life and you understand how important this is, I promise you that this course will change your life. You will learn so much. You will know how to treat what's causing your symptoms, and you will be the director of your health. You'll be able to stop this disease, and you'll be able to have a ton of recovery and get back to living your life and not have to spend years trying to figure it out. Most people honestly don't. It's very complicated, as you just see with this one tiny little topic we're talking about. So Haiti, I am learning about terpenes, natural cleaners, for example. So it's really great to use natural cleaners, absolutely. And that's part of cleaning up the environment. And that's a really, really important topic. But if you have infection growing in you, right, the only way, like there's no diet that's going to treat them, there's no exercise, there's no cleaning up the environment that's going to treat them. You have to treat those infections. And today's topic about reducing the radiation, it makes the killing part of those infections, it makes it a lot more effective, and people are able to treat them a lot better. So Catherine, other than keeping our cell phones away from us when we sleep or in airplane mode, what else can we do? So I mentioned a whole bunch of different options. So it's really like looking at, so for example, we have our office in our home, so we have turned the wireless signal off of our printer, and we have it wired into the into our network. So we have we had to do a lot of renos in this house, and so we have put the hardwired in this house for the internet. And so the technology that is really safe is called fiber optics, and one of our providers has that. So we have fiber optics coming to the house, and then we have internet connection, so we can connect the printer into that. And so it's all going through wires and not through the air. And I know it sounds like going backwards, but where you're living and where you're sleeping, you want to have a rest from this radiation. And where you're working, if it's 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, it is aging us. It is making us get chronic disease quicker. And there's lots of research. And if the government knows that there's all these hundreds of studies, 70% of the studies that are done by non-industry researchers, if there is that much of a health risk, and even that study in 2016 that's showing all of those tumors in the lab animals that are just using the 2 and 3G, never mind the 4G that we're using right now, so those are much lower frequencies, then why are we not putting a pause on this, right? And that's a really good question to ask. So you can talk to your representatives, right? You can address, first learn a little bit, go through the Generation Zapped documentary and look through some of the resources we have. Then start to talk to your representatives, start to talk to the different politicians, start to let your family know. We have to get this information out. This is for real. And it's really going to impact, the biggest are going to be their children, the elderly, and the chronically sick. They're going to feel it the first, right? All right, so with that, I think that I have given you, Dawn, I'll just do a couple more here. Okay, I did that one for Tricia. Dawn, you're so welcome. All right, I think that's it. So if you're ready to recover, make sure to watch my masterclass training. You can literally start recovering this week if you're ready, but you've got to be ready. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. The topic next week is ozone therapy. So that's one of the therapies that we're using to help people recover from the infection. So I just wanted to touch on it because it's really, really helpful. And I will be sharing other different types of therapies, but we found that when people have chronic disease, we have multiple infections, and we can't just rely on pharmaceuticals, we can't just rely on herbs, we have to kind of do a mix of different things to treat these deep-rooted infections, and ozone has been shown to be really, really helpful. So I'll be sharing more about that next week. So with that, please be a champion and get this message out and learn about 5G and start to make a difference, because we're counting on you. All right, so with that, I'm going to let you go, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care and bye-bye for now.